CNN has announced a live town hall with Donald Trump in New Hampshire next week. I do hope CNN chief Chris Licht doesn't have to end up apologizing for giving Trump this platform in the same way that his predecessor, Jeff Zucker, had to apologize for running all those Trump rallies uninterrupted on CNN back in 2016. Personally, I wouldn't interview a man who has used live interviews to incite violence and tell lies, who has in the past encouraged violence against CNN itself. I wouldn't normalize him in that way. But if you are going to interview him, you need to have some very tough and very specific questions. Here are 10 questions I would ask Donald Trump if I had to do an interview with him, and that CNN should consider posing to the indicted former president next week. Number 1. The President of the United States has to swear an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. You are on record, Mr. Trump, just a few months ago, calling for the termination of parts of the Constitution. So you have disqualified yourself from the presidency, have you not? Number 2. Many would argue that you, Mr. Trump, disqualified yourself from the presidency on January the 6th, 2021, when you incited a mob to march on Congress and fight like hell. A mob you knew was armed. A mob you beckoned to Washington, D.C. A mob that included Proud Boys since convicted of sedition. And on the day itself, it wasn't just Fox hosts like Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham who sent text to your chief of staff demanding you condemn the violence, but also your own son, Don Jr. So why didn't you? And why did your own son have to beg you to condemn the rioters? Number 3, on January the 6th, more than 140 police officers were injured by your supporters. They suffered brain injuries, cracked ribs, one lost part of his finger. And yet you, Mr. Trump, have repeatedly vowed to pardon the people who did that to them, and even took part in a music video with some of them. Why would any American who believes in law and order, who supports the police, vote for you? Number 4, you were caught on tape just last month hugging a domestic terrorist, a woman convicted for her role in the January 6th riots. Again, why should anyone who believes in law and order, who supports the police, supports democracy, vote for you, given your open and deliberate support for convicted criminals? Number 5, in January of 2021, as part of what many call your coup attempt, you told Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger in what you've called a perfect phone call to find you extra votes, 11,780 to be precise. And you also claimed in that call that 5,000 dead people voted in Georgia, even though a study commissioned by your own campaign found a day before that call that only 9 so-called dead voters had cast ballots in Georgia in 2020. Why were you off by 4,991 dead voters? That was a blatant lie on your part, was it not? You knew it was false. Number 6. You are being investigated by special counsel Jack Smith for your mishandling of classified documents. But, Mr. Trump, you say the Presidential Records Act allowed you to, quote, negotiate and discuss with the National Archives and Records Administration, with NARA, over which documents to give up. That's false, though, isn't it? It doesn't say that anywhere in the Presidential Records Act. It says you have to give up all the documents the moment you leave office. So tonight, Mr. Trump, can you point to exactly where it says that in the Presidential Records Act? Or will you finally admit that you're just making that up? Number 7, you have been charged in Manhattan with 34 felony counts related to a payment of $130,000 to adult film star Stormy Daniels, who you're accused of having an affair with. Mr. Trump, in April of 2018, you told reporters you didn't know about the payment to Stormy Daniels.
President, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels?
That was a lie. Your own lawyer has admitted that statement by you was false, so why should any American believe a single word you say? Number 8. Do you want to apologize tonight to Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, who has received death threats after you posted images of you holding a baseball bat next to his head? And, Mr. Trump, do you also want to apologize to him tonight for referring to this black prosecutor, this black man, as a degenerate psychopath and as an animal? Question 9. You've refused to testify in your own civil rape trial in New York, Mr. Trump. You've refused to even show up. E. Jean Carroll says you raped her in a department store changing room in the mid-1990s. 2 of her friends have testified that she told them at the time that it happened, plus 2 other women who say you assaulted them as well have also testified in this trial. You've denied the allegations, but why should anyone believe your denial on the issue of sexual misconduct? Given in this case, it's not he said, she said, is it? It's He said, she said, she said, she said, she said, she said. Number 10, you have said you wouldn't pick Ron DeSantis to be your running mate. But why would anyone agree to be your vice president, given the last guy who did that job says you endangered him and his family when your supporters tried to kill him on January the 6th, while you said, according to your own chief of staff, that he deserved it? So, those are my 10 questions for Donald Trump. Obviously, each of them requires follow-ups. You can't just ask one and then move on. Trump is a master of both dissembling and deflecting, especially on live TV, when it's much harder to fact-check him in real time, and in front of an audience, too, which will include his supporters. So, good luck, CNN. But I wish you weren't doing this.